Hello, this is Anna Laura Brown again, your host of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where as always you can find show notes and old episodes at autoimmunerehab.com. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk about something that is a question I get asked a lot, and it's something that I have thought about a lot, and that is about the topic of Hashimoto's remission. So, how do you actually know when your Hashimoto's is in remission, and what things should you do as well as not do in order to put your Hashimoto's into remission? This is something that is a really big challenge for a lot of people. I know it's been a challenge for me for a long time, and I definitely still have some moments when I have flare-ups, when I wonder, am I really in remission? And, my lab results at the moment still don't really say that I'm in remission, but I'm still working on it. So I wanted to address this whole episode about some of the things that you can do to work on getting your Hashimoto's into remission. And more specifically, I have come up with a list of 9 things that I feel like people who want to get their Hashimoto's into remission must do, and 9 things that you must not do. And the must not do's, they're pretty much the opposite of the do's, as is the case with a lot of things. And so I would like to invite you as you listen to this to potentially, if you're in a place where you can take notes, go ahead and do that. If not, you may want to listen once and go back and listen again. And to rate yourself as to how you're doing with these different areas. And especially if you're really struggling right now, you're having a lot of flare ups, maybe you don't feel that great a lot of the time, to really consider, what kind of changes on this list you need to make in order to help you get into Hashimoto's remission. And we'll also remind you that as a health coach, I do offer one-on-one coaching. I can also coach you and help you to actually successfully do a lot of these things, to also help you ask the right questions of your doctors and healthcare professionals to be able to help them help you so that you can actually get your Hashimoto's into remission, because it definitely is possible. I know a lot of people that have done it. I'm on the journey myself and feel like I am mostly in remission, even if I'm not maybe 100% in remission. So keep hope out there. I know it can be done. With no further ado, let's get busy talking about, first of all, the 9 things that you must do to put your Hashimoto's into remission. So, number one is you must get regular blood work. So, what do I mean by this? This means that you must get the full blood panel of your thyroid, antibodies, and everything else on a regular basis. Now, when you first get diagnosed with Hashimoto's, this might mean that you need to do it every 3 months. As the journey goes on, you may need to only do it once a year. Like, I know I'm personally down only once a year now, but don't be surprised if in the beginning your doctors and healthcare professionals want you to continue doing the testing and the blood work every 3 months or so. I know I did it every 3 months for probably about the first 2 years after I got a diagnosis. And then I was able to go down to doing it only twice a year. And then now, like I said, I only do it once a year. So don't be surprised by that. Embrace it, accept it, and realize that that's just partly what comes with having an autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's, is that they really need to stay on top of things, need to see how things are. And this leads into number two, is to get on and take the right medication. So part of the reason that getting the regular blood work and doing it more often than once a year in the beginning is going to be needed is to get you on the right levels of medication. Because if they don't take the blood test more frequently, it's really hard to figure out. And once you get on that right dosage of medication, then you should be okay to have your blood tests on a less regular basis. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, well, what about if I want to try to get into remission of Hashimoto's without medication? Well, this can be done, but I'll tell you right now, it's a lot more complicated, and depending on how severe it is, like personally for me, my antibodies were over 1,000, and they may even still be there. And so they were so severe that I had to do the medication. There really weren't other options. Even my naturopathic doctor who originally diagnosed me told me that I had to do that. And so a lot of you may have to take medication for a couple of years at least, and then you may eventually be able to get off of it. So that is just part of the process. So I encourage you not to totally resist it and to refuse it, especially in the beginning, and just know that that may be something you may have to do. Then number three, work on getting to the root cause. So you want to try to figure out, why do you have Hashimoto's? Why did you get it? and that will help determine to some degree what it is going to take for you to heal from it. So, needed a sip of water there again. There are a lot of different reasons why you could have gotten Hashimoto's, and some of the common reasons include things like some kind of like a toxic poisoning. Like in my case, I'm pretty sure I had mercury poisoning that was at least a partial contributor to why I got Hashimoto's. But there also could be things like some of it's genetic. You may have experienced one or more issues of trauma, some emotional things that may have helped trigger it. You may have had another autoimmune condition first that didn't get fully healed, and then it led you to develop another one, and the other autoimmune condition that you got was Hashimoto's. There you may have some gut issues. You may have some bacterial infections. Things like sometimes people will get something like the Epstein-Barr virus or a Lyme disease, and that can trigger autoimmune disorders. So you want to try to figure out what your root cause is, and it can be really difficult because there may be more than one, and it may be complicated, but you want to do what you can to try to figure that out. The number four is to find the right diet for healing and then the right diet for maintenance. And for some people, those may be different. So, some people, for example, may need to go gluten free for a couple years, 100%, and then they may eventually be able to do what's called a low gluten diet. So, it means like you may be able to have things like sourdough bread that isn't totally gluten free because it's been fermented with the wheat, but yet is easier on your digestive system. You may have to give up dairy for a couple of years, but then you may eventually be able to have things like goat cheese, or you may have to go paleo or even AIP, which, if you've listened to some of my other episodes and things, I'm really not a big fan of, but you may need to do that for a few months, and then your maintenance may be that you can still have mild amounts of a lot of other kinds of foods, or some people maybe even need to go totally plant-based for like a little bit to help them heal, and then once they've done that, they can go back and have some fish, some chicken, turkey, that kind of thing. So you really just have to get some help there too. For most people, unless you are a nutritionist already or a health coach, you may really, really struggle with that. And it's okay. It's not an easy process. And doing some kind of, like an elimination diet to figure this out, but you really do need to figure that out in order to help yourself heal and to get into remission from Hashimoto's. Okay, number five is to focus on self care and self love. This is really huge. There's a lot of books that have been coming out about it. This is something I've been talking about quite a bit more on the podcast lately. It's something that I have heard from a lot of my guests as well, is that you really need to love yourself and to prioritize your self care, because a lot of autoimmune disorders have part of their cause that they develop is that it's because your tissues are attacking that part of your body, and a lot of times it's because you just haven't prioritized your self-care, your self-esteem, your self-love. The number six is to realize that it's a journey to heal. So you're not going to just heal overnight. It's going to be a journey and a process that may take a couple years, or it may take even more than a couple years. And just realize it, recognize it, and embrace it, and be thankful for it. The number seven is to find a functional medicine doctor or healer to help assist you. This is a big one. You are not going to get the right kind of healing and the kind of support to get into Hashimoto's remission without having some kind of a doctor who really specializes in helping with Hashimoto's remission, thyroid issues, autoimmunity, that kind of thing. And typically, my personal experience has been that chiropractors and or acupuncturists are some of the better ones with this. That said, a lot of times, well, pretty much all the time, they can't do and evaluate, draw the labs and that kind of thing. So you will have to work with just a regular MD or nurse practitioner as well. But you definitely want, in my opinion, an acupuncturist and a chiropractor as part of your healing journey, even if you don't necessarily use them as full functional medicine. But in other words, you need a team of doctors and healers to help you. And I highly recommend having a health coach and or nutritionist as well, not just because I am a health coach. I recommend it just because you're going to find it near impossible to get into Hashimoto's remission without one. Okay, the number 8, find the right supplements and take them as directed. So this is a big one. Personally, I can include in the show notes the thyroid supplement that I take. I take a one that's specifically for thyroid. It's not necessarily specifically for Hashimoto's, but it has really made a big difference in how I feel, my overall health, even my lab numbers I think have changed as a result of it. So you really want to figure that out, and that can be a little bit tricky too. You may need some help with that. Number 9 is to get at least 8 hours of sleep per night. And I know this can be a challenge. A lot of us, when we have Hashimoto's, we really struggle with our sleep, but it really, really is important to get some help getting sleep if that is something that you struggle with, because your body cannot heal from Hashimoto's or from any kind of an autoimmune disorder unless you get the right kind of sleep that you need. Okay, so with no further ado, then let's jump into the 9 don'ts of things that you really must not do if you want to get into Hashimoto's remission. Okay, number 1, assume that medication will fix everything. It won't. You can't just take a pill for Hashimoto's and eat whatever you want and do whatever you want and assume that you will just get better, because it won't. Number 2, skip your annual physicals. So, thyroid medication, if you're on it, is going to expire after a year and you're going to have to go get another physical. But even if you're not on it for some reason or find a way to cheat the system, so to speak, you really still absolutely must do an annual physical if you have Hashimoto's. That's just all there is to it. Ideally, you should do it for preventative medicine and other reasons, but if you have Hashimoto's, you absolutely will have to do it. Number 3, refuse to change your diet. You absolutely must do this if you have Hashimoto's and want to fix it. That's all there is to it. Number 4, refuse to take supplements. The reality is, if you have Hashimoto's, you won't be able to fix it without some supplements, because you just won't be able to take the right kind of diet that will help you heal without those. Number 5, overwork yourself. So this is another big one. Just overwork yourself, get burned out, crash and burn, whatever terminology you want to use. You just can't do that. Number 6, live a life of high stress. They say that stress is killing a lot of people, and it's completely true. Stress is also causing a lot of autoimmune conditions. They say that 80% of women are the ones with autoimmune conditions, and 80% of those diagnoses are Hashimoto's. And so, you need to realize that high stress is probably at one of the root causes of why you got Hashimoto's in the first place. Number 7, stay up all night or almost all night. In other words, don't get the right kind of sleep. It's just an absolute must. Cannot do that. Number 8, assume that your medical doctor knows everything. I have news for you, they don't. And if they're not working with you and cooperating with you and helping assist you in your journey to healing, fire them and get a different doctor. That's just all there is to it. And learn to listen to your body and help yourself to heal, as well as, like I said, get a team of professionals, including a health coach, chiropractor, acupuncturist, that kind of thing. And number 9, expect quick healing. The reality is that you didn't get Hashimoto's overnight. Many of us have had it I probably had it for 5 years before I got a diagnosis. And you aren't going to just immediately heal from it. You didn't get it overnight. You won't heal from it overnight either. So anyhow, I hope that you have found these things helpful. Let me read over the list again. So things to do, you want to, number 1, get regular blood work. Number 2, get on and take the right medication. Number 3, work on getting to the root cause. Number 4, find the right diet for healing and maintenance. Number 5, focus on self-care and self-love. Number 6, realize that it's a journey to heal. Number 7, find a functional medicine doctor or healer. Number 8, find the right supplements and take them as directed. Number 9, get at least 8 hours of sleep per night. And then the don'ts, as you noticed, are pretty much the opposite of all those things. So anyhow, I hope you found this helpful. And if you do have questions or concerns or need some help in what to say to talk to your doctor, food, recipes, different things like that, please reach out. Let's do a consult. Let's have a conversation about it. I would love to help you. Take care, and I look forward to hearing from you on another episode of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where, as always, I can remind you can find show notes and other episodes online at autoimmunerehab.com.